Zubaida had always been the quiet the kind of woman who spoke with her eyes, whose laughter made the wind pause, and whose heart beat only for love. She came from Mboko Village, a peaceful place where the trees whispered stories and neighbors shared more than just food. Life was simple there, but her heart had bigger dreams, and those dreams came true the day she met Kendi. Kendi was everything Zubaida thought she wanted: charming, smart, and from Dandala City. He had the kind of confidence that could fill a room, and when he smiled, Zubaida felt like nothing could ever go wrong. They married quickly, against whispers and warnings, and Zubaida moved to the city, holding his hand and her dreams tight. 3 months later, Zubaida was pregnant, glowing with joy, placing her hand on her growing belly every morning and whispering little prayers of gratitude. She cooked his favorite meals, ironed his shirts just the way he liked, and waited by the window every evening for his return. She believed they were building something beautiful, a home, a future, a family. But slowly, something began to change. Kendi's eyes stopped lighting up when he looked at her. His voice lost its warmth. He'd leave early and come home late. Zubaida told herself he was just tired, stressed, busy with work. She didn't see it coming, the storm that was gathering silently behind his silence. Because while Zubaida was dreaming of love, Kendi was hiding something else, something that would soon break her heart in ways she never imagined. At first, Zubaida thought it was just stress. Kendi had started coming home late, sometimes past midnight, with tired eyes and a short temper. She would wait at the table with his dinner still warm, her hands nervously folded in her lap, hoping for a smile or a kind word. But slowly, the Kendi she fell in love with began to disappear. He stopped talking to her like he used to. No more long conversations, no more jokes, no more gentle touches. When she asked if everything was okay, he would snap, "You ask too many questions." Then came the blame. One evening, when Zubaida mentioned her baby kicking for the first time, his face twisted with frustration. "You don't understand how hard things are for me. You and this baby, you're slowing me down. I could be doing big things right now." Zubaida's heart broke in silence. She didn't fight back. She just tried harder. She woke up earlier, made his favorite dishes, ironed every shirt with care, even started reading books about how to be a better wife. She tried to keep the house spotless, made sure to never raise her voice, and smiled even when she felt like crying. She wanted him to love her again. She wanted things to go back to how they were. But Kendi only grew colder. His late nights turned into entire weekends away. Sometimes he wouldn't even tell her where he was going. He stopped touching her belly, stopped asking about the baby. The distance between them wasn't just emotional anymore. It felt like they were strangers living in the same house. Zubaida would cry softly into her pillow at night, careful not to make a sound. She still believed love could fix things. She still hoped the man she married was somewhere deep inside the one standing before her. But each day, that hope faded a little more, and Zubaida had no idea that the worst was yet to come. That night, Zubaida had a strange feeling in her chest. Kendi hadn't come home again. It was almost 10 p.m. The rain outside had started to pour, and the wind howled against the windows. Still, she waited. She had made his favorite, goat stew with rice, and kept it warm on the stove. Her feet were swollen from the pregnancy, but she didn't care. She just wanted him to eat something warm, to feel loved, to maybe smile at her once. She decided to take the food to him. She had overheard him say he was staying at a friend's place nearby. With a small container wrapped in cloth, she stepped out into the rain, covering her head with a scarf. Her dress clung to her belly as the rain soaked her through, but she walked carefully, thinking only of Kendi and hoping he'd be happy to see her. When she reached the house, she knocked softly. No answer. She knocked again. Finally, the door opened, and there he was. But he wasn't alone. A woman stood beside him wearing one of his shirts. Zubaida froze. Her eyes widened, the food container trembling in her hands. Kendi's face changed in an instant, from surprise to anger. He stepped outside, slammed the door behind him, and hissed, "Why are you here? You're embarrassing me." "I brought you dinner," she said, voice shaking. "I didn't ask for it," he shouted. "You just don't get it. You keep clinging like a burden." The words hit her like slaps. Before she could even speak, he snatched the container from her hands and flung it across the street. The stew splattered into the muddy road, and then it happened. With eyes full of fury, Kendi grabbed her by the arm and pushed her away from the porch. Go back where you came from. Don't come here again. She slipped, almost fell, and stood there, barefoot, drenched, shaking. Kendi, please, she whispered, but he was already slamming the door. The cold rain didn't stop, neither did her tears. Zubaida stood alone in the dark, hugging her belly, her heart torn in 1,000 pieces. That night, the man she loved didn't just break her trust, he broke her spirit. And with every drop of rain, her world washed further away. Zubaida didn't know where to go. She stood in the rain for what felt like hours. Her clothes stuck to her skin, her hands wrapped tightly around her belly, trying to protect the little life inside her. The streets were empty. Cold water ran down her back, her teeth chattered, and her legs felt weak. But she kept walking. She knocked on the first door she saw. It was a small house, the kind where she'd once dropped off wedding invitations with Kendi. A woman peeked through the curtain but didn't open. Zubaida knocked again, softly. Please, it's me, Zubaida. I just need a place to sit, just for the night. No answer. She went to the next house. A man opened the door just a crack. His eyes widened when he saw her soaked and barefoot. Zubaida, he said, surprised. But the moment she asked for help, he shook his head quickly. I can't get involved. Please, go. She tried 4 more houses. Same story. Some didn't even open the door. Others whispered behind curtains. Everyone knew Kendi. He was charming, popular, and well-connected in the area. No one wanted to go against him, even if it meant turning away a pregnant woman standing in the rain. Zubaida's body was giving up. Her feet ached, her back throbbed, and her stomach growled. She hadn't eaten since morning. Every step felt heavier than the last. Her vision blurred. She saw a bus stop ahead, just a small shelter with a bench. Somehow, she dragged herself there. She sat down, then slowly leaned to the side, trying to rest her head on the cold metal pole. But her body gave in. She collapsed. There, on the hard concrete floor, soaked, hungry and completely alone, Zubaida fainted. No one saw. No one helped. And in that dark, rainy night, it felt like the world had forgotten her. A woman who had once been full of dreams, now lying motionless under the open sky. Not knowing if the morning would come, or if she'd even wake to see it. The sky had started to lighten when Mama Olai passed the bus stop. She was on her way to the market, her shawl wrapped tight around her shoulders to block the morning chill. As she walked past the shelter, something made her stop. A shape, barely moving, was curled up near the bench. She stepped closer and gasped. It was a young woman, soaked to the bone, shivering even in her sleep. Her belly was round with pregnancy, and her lips were cracked from the cold. Mama Olai dropped her basket and knelt beside her. Child, can you hear me? She whispered. Zubaida didn't answer. Her body was too weak, but somewhere in her heart, she heard the voice. Soft, warm, motherly. Without wasting a second, Mama Olai called a passing tuk-tuk and rushed her to her small home at the edge of Dandala. She laid her down, changed her into dry clothes, and gave her warm soup. For 2 days, Zubaida drifted in and out of sleep, and every time she opened her eyes, Mama Olai was there, spoon in hand, wiping her forehead, humming soft songs. On the 3rd day, Zubaida finally sat up. Her voice cracked as she whispered, "Why did you help me?" Mama Olai smiled gently. "Because once, someone helped me too." Weeks passed, and Zubaida slowly healed. She told Mama everything, about Kendi, the betrayal, the baby. Mama listened, never interrupting, just holding her hand. Then one early morning, Zubaida screamed from her bed. The baby was coming. It was a long, painful labor, but by sunset, a tiny baby boy lay in her arms. He had her eyes, her strength. She named him Imani, meaning faith. From that day on, Zubaida was no longer just a broken woman. She was a mother, a survivor. She started helping Mama Olai with household chores. Then one day, Mama introduced her to a small tailoring shop run by her niece. Zubaida began learning stitching, tiny repairs at first, then dresses and shirts. She worked hard. Every stitch felt like healing. Every thread felt like a piece of her life being tied back together. Zubaida had lost everything, but somehow, in a stranger's arms, she found safety and the strength to begin again. Zubaida never planned to become a fashion designer. At first, she was just grateful to have a job, sewing buttons, fixing torn seams, hemming skirts at the small tailoring shop near Mama Olai's home. But something inside her started to wake up. Every time she held fabric in her hands, her fingers moved like they remembered something her heart had forgotten: creativity, passion, possibility. Late at night, after feeding little Imani and putting him to sleep, Zubaida would sit by the dim light and sketch dresses on the backs of old papers. She imagined bold colors, flowing lines, pieces that made women feel strong and beautiful. She didn't have formal training, but she had vision and hunger. One day, the shop owner noticed one of Zubaida's sketches. "Did you draw this?" she asked, surprised. Zubaida nodded shyly. This could be something big." That moment changed everything. The shop started letting her create custom pieces. One client, then 2, then 5, all asking for the girl who makes those beautiful dresses. Word spread quickly in Dandala City. People began to notice her talent, her eye for detail, the way she stitched not just clothes, but stories. With Mama Olai's blessing and every coin she had saved, Zubaida took a bold step. She rented a tiny space on a busy street corner and painted the name on the front herself, Imani Styles, named after her son, her miracle, her reason. At first, it was just her and a sewing machine, but soon, women from all over the city came to her boutique. Some were brides, some were businesswomen, some were just looking for something that made them feel like themselves again. And they found it with Zubaida. Her style was unique, African prints mixed with modern cuts, bold patterns that told stories of strength, survival, and hope. Fashion bloggers started talking about her. Local magazines did a feature, and one day, a well-known fashion house invited her to a design expo. Zubaida, the same girl who once stood crying in the rain, now stood in her boutique with pride. She was no longer just surviving. She was building something beautiful from her pain, and this was only the beginning. Kendi thought he had everything: a new life in the city, a flashy girlfriend, a job that paid well, and most importantly, freedom from the woman he believed was holding him back. He never once looked back at Zubaida, not after throwing her out, not even after hearing whispers that she had given birth alone. He was too busy chasing his big dreams, but life has its way of teaching hard lessons. First, his job slipped out of his hands. The company downsized and he was let go without warning. "We're sorry, Kendi, it's just business," they told him. He laughed it off at first. "No problem," he said. "I've got other plans." He believed his side hustle would save him, an online clothing line that barely made sales. But months passed, and orders never came. Money stopped flowing. Rent piled up. He borrowed from friends until they stopped picking his calls. Then came the second blow. His girlfriend packed her things and left. "I can't live like this," she said coldly. "You're not the man you used to be." The same woman who once called him a king now didn't even say goodbye properly. Kendi sat in that small apartment, all alone. The lights were off. The kitchen was empty. Silence filled the room. But inside his heart, there was noise, regret, shame, and memories he had buried deep. One evening, while flipping through channels with tired hands, he suddenly stopped. His eyes widened. On the screen was a glowing news report about a young fashion designer changing lives in Dandala City. The boutique's name, Imani Styles. And there she was, Zubaida, smiling, radiant, surrounded by success and love, holding the hand of a young boy with eyes just like his. Imani, their son. The camera zoomed in on her as she said, "I believe pain can be a seed. You just have to decide what you want to grow from it." Kendi felt something crack inside. It wasn't just guilt, it was heartbreak. The woman he had left to suffer had risen. She didn't just survive. She became everything he had dreamed of being. And he was sitting in the dark, empty, forgotten. Kendi finally understood. He had not only lost a wife, he had lost a queen. It was a bright afternoon in Dandala City. The street outside Imani Styles was buzzing as usual, customers walking in and out, cameras flashing, the boutique's golden name shining under the sun. Inside, Zubaida was helping a bride choose a dress when one of her staff rushed in, whispering, "Madam, there's a man outside, he's asking for you." Zubaida walked to the glass door and looked out. Her heart stopped. There he was, Kendi, but he didn't look like the man she once knew. His shirt was torn, shoes covered in dust, and his face had aged with regret. He stood trembling outside her boutique, holding his hands together, as if the weight of his shame was too heavy to bear. People started gathering. Phones came out. Videos were being recorded. Someone even whispered, "Isn't that the man who threw her out?" Kendi saw her at the door, his eyes filled with tears. He stepped closer, then suddenly fell to his knees on the pavement. "Zubaida! Please!" he begged, his voice shaking. "I was wrong. I've lost everything. Please forgive me. I have nothing left." The crowd grew silent. Zubaida didn't say a word. She just stood still, her expression unreadable. A camera zoomed in on her face. Everyone waited for her response. She slowly walked toward him, her heels clicking against the ground. Standing tall, she looked down at the same man who had once looked down on her. Kendi's voice broke again. "I have no one." And then, Zubaida's eyes met his, calm, unshaken. People expected her to cry, or shout, or take him back, but she didn't do any of that. She just stared for a long moment, then turned to the crowd, her voice steady as she spoke just one sentence. "This man threw me away when I needed him the most." Then she looked back at him. "Now life has thrown you back to me." And with that, she turned around and walked back inside her boutique, head held high. The crowd erupted. Gasps, cheers, claps. Cameras caught it all. Kendi remained on his knees, broken in front of the woman he once broke. But Zubaida, she didn't look back, not even once. The street outside Imani Styles was busier than usual. Customers came in smiling. Workers arranged the new dresses on display, and Zubaida stood by the window, watching the world pass by. Strong, successful, peaceful. She was no longer the girl who once cried in the rain. She was now a woman who had rebuilt herself from the ground up. Then she saw something. Someone. Standing across the road, in torn clothes and worn-out slippers, was Kendi. For a moment, she couldn't believe it. His hair was messy, his face thin, eyes tired and full of guilt. He looked nothing like the proud man who once screamed at her, the man who had thrown her out without a second thought. And then, he crossed the road. He came closer, his hands shaking, his eyes locked with hers. People began to notice. Someone whispered, "Isn't that Zubaida's ex-husband?" Phones came out. Cameras started recording. Kendi stepped right in front of the boutique, in full public view. Then, without warning, he dropped to his knees. "Zubaida, please." His voice cracked. "I'm so sorry. I made the biggest mistake of my life. I've lost everything. Please forgive me." Zubaida didn't move. She stood inside the glass doors, calm, silent. People gathered around, recording every second. Some gasped. Others shook their heads. "I was stupid," Kendi continued, his voice desperate. "You were the best thing that ever happened to me. I was blind. Please, just one chance. Even if you don't take me back, please say you forgive me." Zubaida opened the door slowly and stepped outside. Everyone went quiet. She looked at him for a long moment. The man who once left her begging in the street was now begging in front of her, in rags, in shame, in full view of the world. Zubaida's voice was soft but clear. "You left me when I was carrying your child. You threw me out into the cold, like I was nothing." Kendi nodded, tears falling. "I know." She took a deep breath, then said, "Now life has brought you back, like trash returned to the doorstep it was thrown from." And with that, she turned around and walked away. The crowd gasped. Kendi stayed on his knees. And Zubaida? She didn't look back. The TV lights were bright, but Zubaida looked calm and confident. She sat in the center of the studio, wearing one of her own elegant designs, her hands resting gently in her lap. The host smiled and said, "Zubaida, after everything you've been through, what message would you like to share with the world?" Zubaida looked straight into the camera and spoke slowly, from the heart. "Never let betrayal define you," she said. "Let it refine you." That one line went viral. Her story had already touched thousands. How she was thrown out while pregnant, how she struggled in the streets, and how she rose again to become one of the most respected fashion designers in Dandela City. But now, she was doing something even greater. With her growing income, Zubaida didn't just buy luxury or fame. She built a shelter, a safe home for women who had been abandoned, beaten, or left alone, just like she once was. She named it Mama Olai House, in honor of the widow who had saved her life. Every week, Zubaida would visit, sit with the women, hold their hands, listen to their stories, and remind them that pain doesn't have to be the end. It can be the beginning. People from all over Mboko and beyond came to see her, not just for clothes, but for courage. Schools invited her to speak. Magazines called her the face of hope, and everywhere she went, she carried her truth with quiet strength. Zubaida had turned her scars into stars. She didn't just survive, she inspired. And in doing so, she gave thousands of women a reason to believe that no matter how dark it gets, light always finds a way.